Antonio, you said to me one time you are not a painter.
Right.
About yourself. What do you consider yourself? Because you're an artist, you do so many things. You paint, you write, you do all of these things. You design, you're a stage designer, a dress designer, you design swords, going back to the ancient way of doing it. How do you consider yourself?
Well, you know, it's very much like my condition as a Macanese. You know, I've never. The first time I realized I was Macanese was when I flew to Italy. I flew to Portugal. I stopped over in Italy. First stop in Europe. So I looked at the window, you know, and said, "Hey, white man carrying things," because I was used to see Chinese, Asians carrying things. So I say, "Hey, something wrong here," you know. So actually, then I realized, hey, I come from Asia, and I'm Asian, and then, you know, this whole feeling was very amazing to some extent and very interesting because it was a discovery. The same thing that happens is basically I have no need. I mean, for me, at the age that I am now, I have no need to explain to myself what I am. You know, I just do things. Things come and are linked in a holistic way. That's how I believe things are. But basically, I think people tend to need a brand. You know, you have to say you are a painter. Okay, then so I understand you. Now I know that you use brushes and so forth. You're a photographer. Okay, oh okay, now I know. But you know, I would say, well, I'm probably my best way to say is that I prefer to be someone who is in the realm of creation, you know.
So you're a creator.
No, that's somebody else, you know. Yeah, I don't know which shape it has, but I would say that I like to be in the realm of creativity. You know, that's very much what it is all about. You know, it how you view things in your mind and how, you know, you bridge between what you see with your eyes and what you view with your mind. And that's basically what I would like to consider myself as, you know. But I find it difficult in Macau for people to accept something that is not branded, you know. You have to be something, you know. The Macau community, it's a very thriving artistic community where people probably will not say too much about what they do, but will present work that sometimes is pretty unique, because that's also, the city is very unique. If you think that perhaps an attempt of a globalization was achieved to some extent in the 16th century, you know, the farthest westernmost European country demanding, looking for the farthermost easternmost country, China, and then, you know, settling a little place, and that's a miracle, you know. So if we acknowledge this as a miracle, you know, the architecture, all this, then perhaps we can understand that underlying all this long voyage, there are many trips. As you know, I make a big difference between a journey and a trip. A trip is just a physical dislocation of the body, right? But the journey is something that is to be undertaken alone and within. So journeys are always within. Therefore, there's a place where you can grow, where you can, you know, you can mature, you can assemble many things. Many of them are fictional, you know, but then what's wrong with fiction? It's just an attempt of reality.
You call yourself a conceptualist?
Yes, you know, mainly if you're a painter, you're supposed to paint yourself, you know. As you know, the word ars was for art, but during the Greek times, as everybody knows, an artist or a painter was a craftsman, you know, like a woodworker or something like that. So the concept of art came much later in terms of, you know, and the let's say the status quo of being an artist came much later. So I think that my natural tendency to disperse myself into different, or to, let's say, walk around through different disciplines, required me to be more of a conceptualist. I mean, paint with your mind, and only when your mind is ready and almost every brush stroke has been planned, then I go and paint. Like this painting has been lying around for 5 years or something, and then suddenly I say, okay, I'll finish, and I redid everything, you know, everything redone, and I'll offer this to my wife as a birthday gift. So when you design fashion, basically you just make a few sketches, you know, and or when you design a medallion or something, you basically do it in the computer, because all the medallions are made in Portugal. So meaning that the old concept of sculpting a medallion would be, you know, very much like the coins, you know, with someone's effigy on it. It's outdated, so I had to adapt my language or my vocabulary to each discipline, although the approach was the same always. So this interdisciplinary activity was possible because I came into a very concise way of working. Sometimes it's, you know, they ask me for a logotype, and I'll, you know, just lay around doing nothing for 1 day or 2 days, and then just letting things come. Don't look for it, just come, you know, and then they will assemble themselves, and then suddenly you just go like that. That's it, you know. And
these medallions, they were all commissions, or
some were commissions, some were you know, prizes. I mean, prize-winning competition. You know, I don't very much like competition. You know, because when you win something, suppose somebody loses. You know, I don't think it's. I prefer to be invited to do something rather than. Yeah, I never went into looking for a work. You know, hey, can you give me some work? Mainly because I was doubling my creative part as well as being a museum director. So you wouldn't be supposed to go around fishing for work. You know.
Also, you've become very modern. You're working on the internet a lot.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting because I can work, for instance, with you know, in sorts. I work with the U.S., so I work with American bladesmiths, and apart from, you know, from meeting Joe Walters this year, all our previous work was done through images in the internet. So, and then I have customers from Asia, from Europe, from the US, and they've never met me. And, you know, they pay for their work, for what they want, and they get what they want. So that's, it's a new world over there. It's interesting.
The name of your website is Arscives. How do you pronounce that?
Oh, in Portuguese, which is, I tend to think that it's very close to Latin. It's ars civis. Ars being art and civis being city. Civis, it's the same root for civilization, civis. So city is also the root for the widespread of culture, of civilization.
I was
so
going
art
to say,
for the city.
What do you hope to accomplish with this?
Oh, nothing. I mean, I think that I'm becoming very much attached to Buddhism, or detached, if you know what I mean. I mean, I try to remove from me the wish of attaining this or that, you know, just let things happen, you know.
Antonio, your interest, which I assume is rather recent, in designing swords. Tell me about that, because that's rather unusual. You think of swords as being totally ancient, but you're doing this in the modern age.
Yes.
How did it start?
Well, it has to do with Aikido. Aikido, it's art of peace, or let's say martial art, if you want to call it that way, from Japan. And you also use a sword, a wooden sword called a bokuto. And there's always a time for something, you know. So at a certain moment I was able to purchase my first katana-like sword, but not a nihonto. What's a nihonto? Nihonto is the word for Japanese sword, means made in Japan. So I will never be probably able to afford one which is, you know, it's. I wouldn't want to have a private jet. What for? So the same thing in terms of nihonto. It's very beautiful. You can go to the museums and see them, the metallurgy. It has very much to do with alchemy. The whole process is about, the alchemic process is about the behavior of metals. But actually metals are, to me and to my understanding of alchemists, are basically just, you know, a metaphor for the human soul, or for the human being, you know, by being the impure metals and the pure metals, or the contaminated metals and so forth. But then that is not my direct concern. I got interested in that, but that's not my direct concern. I'm not a bladesmith. I learned a little bit about that, and I know how you should do something or how you shouldn't do something, but then I'm more into the design of things. Because basically what is interesting is that the sword has been rendered obsolete by the firearm, right? So at that moment the sword takes a different direction. It is not anymore a weapon, it is a paradox. We are now entering in the realm of symbols. And so we are, I mean, that's my main interest, you know, to design or redesign shapes that were ancient and try to confer to them a different view.
Does any company or any person make the swords that you design?
Yes, I have a couple of bladesmiths with whom I have worked. I have, you know, some customers who request swords from me, and I have and I have traveled to meet a young man who is one of the most talented people I have met in the steel work. You know, he lives in Tennessee, and his name is Joe Walters, and he's 24 years old. You know, and has what about? He started at 17, you know, and he's so talented that I think that recognition is not important, because before he is recognized, he's as good as he will be after being recognized. Actually, he is being now recognized. I'm trying to I think one I discovered that one of the tasks in my life is to help in a very modest way meritocracy to work in a world where influences are the most important thing. I still believe at my age that meritocracy is very important, that merit is something, you know, that counts very much.
How would someone at the age of 17 get interested in making and designing swords? I mean, usually it's baseball or soccer or something like that.
Right.
What do you suppose were his influences?
I've never asked him about. I've never asked him about this particular question, but it's fantastic that he works still in such a contemporary way that it looks like he's sculpting clay, you know. He did a sword guard that looks like clay. You look at it and it's so easy, you know, and however it's steel, you know, and you have to pit and drill and all that, you know, and it's fantastic. So
has he invented new processes to work that way in metals?
Yes. And
how old is he now?
He's 24, 25 probably.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah, so he's brilliant in the term that my aim was to bring the sword to the museum, if you know what I mean. Not as an expression, you know, not the old sword, which I very much respect, like any other civilization tool, let's say, but the contemporary approach. I mean, you know, if you do a steel sculpture or you do a wooden sculpture, why don't you do? Why isn't sword acceptable as a piece of art? You know, if you can impart different treatments of the surface or even the core of the blade and all that's very much part of the you know, the alchemic process, and it's art because it's not meant to hurt anybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I very much appreciate this. It's fascinating. You're great.
Oh. Basically, I have no need. I mean, for me, at the age that I am now, I have no need to explain to myself what I am. You know, I just do things. Things come and are linked in a holistic way. That's how I believe things are.
Antonio, you said to me one time you are not a painter.
Right.
About yourself. What do you consider yourself? Because you're an artist, you do so many things. You paint, you write, you...
Carrying things, I say, something wrong here, you know. So actually, then I realized, hey, I come from Asia, and I'm Asian, and then, you know, this whole feeling was very amazing to some extent and very interesting because it was a discovery. The same thing that happens is...
Do all of these things. You design, you're a stage designer, a dress designer, you design swords, going back to the ancient way of doing it. How do you consider yourself?
Well, you know, it's very much like my condition as a Macanese. You know, I've never. The first time I realized I was Macanese was when I flew to Italy. I flew to Portugal and I stopped over in Italy. First stop in Europe. So I looked at the window, you know, and said, "Hey, white man carrying things," because I was used to see Chinese, Asians